Okay, good. Well, now that I have my delicious tea, I think you might know what we're going to talk about here. Great. Kevin here, just popping in to talk about Next.js and why you may use it in 2023. So, what's Next.js? Next.js is a JavaScript framework around react.js. It's in the business of building React applications easier. So why Next.js? So Next.js version 1 was released in October of 2016. And the time of making this video in 2023, that's 7 years ago. We're now on version 13 of Next.js. So Next.js has been around a while, and quite honestly, before I looked this up, I didn't know it had been around that long. So Next.js has been around a while, and honestly, before I looked this up, I didn't know it had been that long. React was first released in 2013, 9 years ago, so only a couple years after React was released, Next.js came out, which was surprising to me. I didn't know they were fairly close together and when they were actually released. So enough of the history lesson, but that goes to show you that this framework had time to bake, and we like things that bake in software. Makes things taste better. Yum, right? Okay, enough with the baking analogies. Besides Next.js having a long history, almost as long as React itself, it is used in production by a lot of companies at this point. Nike, the Washington Post, Netflix, Mr. Beast uses it for some of his e-commerce sites, TikTok, Hulu, Notion, and many others have chosen Next.js as the framework for their React applications in production. So we have longevity, we have a lot of usage from a lot of different places, but what about the features? So let's talk about features of Next.js a little bit. There are a lot of them. I'm not going to go into all of them in this video, but check out some of my other videos about some other particular Next.js features coming up. But let me talk about some that are pretty compelling. So one of the things that you can use with Next.js is the CLI. For getting started really quickly, there's a CLI called Create Next App, which provides a quick way to bootstrap your application. This is provided by the Next.js team and is really easy to get going. Sometimes this is one of the hardest things to do in front-end projects. You spend a lot of time setting things up just right, and you get before you even get to the actual programming, before you actually get to the application logic that actually makes your app unique, right? So in the CLI, you can just type npx create next app space and then your app name in your terminal, and you're off to the races. It will prompt you with a whole bunch of questions, which you can answer right there to get an Next.js app going in less than 60 seconds. So once you have the application bootstrapped, you can take a look at a few of the things that's going on inside the app itself. So if you look at a React app versus a Next.js app, so for instance, if you use create React app and you create a React app and you set it next to a Next.js app that you create, and you look at the dependencies, you're going to find some interesting things. So dependencies. If you look at the Next.js app when you install it, just Next, React, and React DOM are your three dependencies that show up, which I think is often overlooked, especially to newcomers to it, because if you've been using create React app before and looked at how many dependencies are there, especially when you eject it, it's crazy. So assuming you eject from your create React app, you're going to have 52 dependencies there. And that means 52 dependencies you have to keep up to date on, make sure they're all working through the life of your React application, which is a big ask, especially for larger teams or bigger apps that have dependencies that touch a lot of different parts of the app. So So granted, you don't have to eject from that create React app necessarily, but if you do, there comes a lot of pain with it. And create React app itself has really kind of not been maintained lately. I think there's something like 1,300 issues in the repo. So something to think about, and I think it is a big plus with Next.js when you're talking about only having to worry about 3 dependencies. So you get a small dependency list, and it's going to be not painful to upgrade to the Next.js version. So, second thing, what I'm going to talk about is fast refresh, which is great. It's a big one. It's for developer experience. It makes Next.js pretty amazing. So if you ever worked on create React app before and find yourself developing and then you find like you need to see if your change actually took effect, sometimes you have to refresh the whole page, sometimes you don't. It's kind of hit or miss when it comes to knowing whether the change you made has actually done the thing you want when you're looking at the web page itself in Create React app. So with fast refresh, that's a feature of Next.js, you see changes within a second. Components keep their state, which is huge because the alternative is sometimes if you're developing, you have to get to that state again once you've made a change, gone through that user flow, got to the place that you see the state that you changed, and then maybe it's not right and you have to do it all over again. So talking about the amount of times you have to go through that kind of workflow may seem like a small thing, but taking over days or weeks or more, and you're saving a lot of time with this feature in Next.js. It is awesome. So the third and final thing I'm going to talk about is built-in optimizations. And there are several, but I'm only going to talk about one. And why built-in optimizations? Why is that a good thing in Next.js? There are a lot of ways to shoot yourself in the foot when it comes to React.js and when it comes to performance. So one of the things that is somewhat taken off your plate is for images, for instance. Think about when the last time you've created a React app and you had to think about maybe you had a scrolling list of images, how those images came in, how those images loaded, how those images were loaded from a CDN or not, what were their sizes, did it take into account large browsers or smaller devices. There are a lot of tricky things when it comes to optimizing images in a React application. So with Next.js, you get this great component that allows you to do responsive images out of the box, allows you to load from a CDN or not, however you have your setup going, allows you to configure things through a source set of images, so the browser knows to download the right size image for the right viewport of the browser, and you give it a list of all those images and it will do the right thing for you, which is fantastic. So this is one of the things if you ever seen Google's web dev page that talks about the different things to think about in optimization, one of them is the largest contentful paint, or LCP as it's sometimes called. And sometimes you feel like a large hero image or something like that can hit that limit, and all of a sudden your page load and your page performance goes way down because that large image is maybe served to every device, whether it's large or small, and that has an effect on performance. So with the image component coming from Next.js, a lot of those things you don't have to think about as much. It is optimized for you, taking the right path. So that's pretty awesome. So these are only 3 features of Next.js that I covered. There are many, many more. There's built-in TypeScript integration, ESLint integration, built-in optimizations for fonts and third-party script loading, support for CSS modules, Sass, PostCSS, CSS&JS, routing and layouts, middleware. It handles compiling, minifying, bundling, and code splitting. I only covered 3 features in this particular video. If you like this one, give the video a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.